Hey everyone, this is Blockchain Bernie with my latest episode, and this one is about a Solana ETF, right? An exchange traded fund. So we've all seen the approval by the SEC of the Bitcoin spot ETFs, right? It was something we've been waiting for a long time, and it has been hyped, and they finally got approved. So what does that all mean to us? I mean, we're all happy that it got approved, right? And definitely we all love that. So let me play with some of my effects here today. But what does that all mean? I'll dive a little bit into the pros and cons if there's gonna be a Solana ETF anytime soon. And before we do that, I'll dive a little bit more into the Bitcoin ETFs, which ones are out there right now, how successful they are, how's their fee structure, and then dive into how does the future look, and can we actually expect a Solana ETF anytime soon? So please watch it all through the end. And, if you like content like this, don't forget to give me that like button. It's really important. Thanks a lot in advance. All right. So um, looking into the ETFs. So if we look at Blockworks here. So Blockworks has a website and they list all the Bitcoin ETFs. We see number one here by AUM, right? And AUM is an important metric for me. It means assets under management. So it means how much Bitcoin is actually in there and, how much funds have been flowing into that fund. And they buy Bitcoin for it because it's a spot ETF, right? So they actually have to buy the real thing. And that's the difference from what we had before, right? There were like Bitcoin trusts out there, there were futures, ETFs, and all these type of things. But what is new now is the spot ETF. So spot ETF means they actually have to buy the real Bitcoin in order to, you know, um, track the Bitcoin price. But there have been other investment vehicles before. So if you wanted to invest into Bitcoin somehow using the stock exchange, you could have done it before with those trusts and futures ETFs and frankly spot ETFs from other countries and stuff like that. But now, we have the spot Bitcoin spot ETF approved by the SEC, which is a big milestone. So again, let's look into it, how they look like. We see number one is the grayscale. It has the largest asset, by far the largest asset under management. The number two here, as you can see, is a futures ETF. So that one doesn't even count. And then, this only is 500 million, 400 million. So BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise, ARK, they are relatively small, right? So the lion's share here is with Grayscale, right? And then look at their fee structures, right? So this is the annual fee. So, like many of them have 0.25 here, and Grayscale even has 1.5%. Holy cow, right? That's a lot of money, right? And let me remind you a little bit about the compounding effect that these fees have, right? So let's dive into this little sheet here, right? And let's just assume you put $10,000 into one of these ETFs, and then you keep them for a long time, right? So in my case, 10,000, and let's say Bitcoin appreciates by 9% over the years, right? On average, there's years where Bitcoin appreciates like crazy, and there's other where it depreciates. But, let's just assume it's similar to stocks in the long run over the next 30 years. And I've did that for 30 years here, right? So if it appreciates on average by 9% each year, those $10,000 without you putting in any money later on at all, right? It's just that initial investment of $10,000 and you just let it lie there, right? For 30 years. With 9% annual appreciation, you end up having 121,000. $721.82. But if you pay those 0.25% here to one of these ETFs, you see it's a small difference here, right? 10,900 in the second year versus 10,875. 11,881 versus 11,826. But in 30 years, it's like 121 versus 113. So that's a difference of $7,800. That's 78% of your initial investment that just has been taken by these guys, right? At only 0.25%. So keep in mind the compounding effect here. And what that means is like you'll have 6.89% of your potential future value here eaten up by these guys, and 6.89 sounds like a way larger figure than the 0.25 that they advertise, right? So now let's see what happens if you go with Grayscale and you even pay the 1.5%, right? So then, instead of the 121, you would end up with 81,000. Wow. They are eating up $40,000 over 30 years, and that's like they rob you of 50% of your potential future value here. I mean, that is like crazy. And so the 50% is like, okay, you have 81,000, but you could have 50% more, which is the 120,000 if you if you hadn't have to pay those 1.5%, right? So yeah, keep that compounding effect in mind when you go with these ETFs. If you can just buy the real thing, without any fees or something, it's always the best thing. But some institutional investors and retirement funds and stuff like that, they can only go through the stock exchange. They can only invest into something that's regulated by the SEC and all these things. So there is definitely a market for these ETFs, and you see that with the money that's flowing in there. So what does that all mean for Ethereum, for Solana? Will there be ETFs out there as well? So, and there are guys out there that say, oh, it's not going to happen that soon because Ethereum and Solana and all the others, those are being considered securities by the SEC. There's that famous lawsuit where the SEC sued Coinbase for selling unregistered securities on Coinbase, right? And they listed an example there, and Solana is one of them, and Cardano was one of them, and Axie Infinity, and I don't know, so many tokens there and coins. And yeah, so there are people out there that say, it's not going to happen anytime soon to have an SEC approved ETF of Solana or Ethereum or anything because those are securities. And actually, let's look into what Reddit has to say here. So I'll check Reddit here for these things. Here we go, right? And Solana ETF, potential reality or not. So someone's asking, do you think Solana ETF is on the cards? If ETH is next, just wondering if people believe that Solana is likely to follow afterwards. Thoughts, right? And there are some nice thoughts here, right? Some guys say, I don't think it ever will, sadly. Sol is too tied to the Solana Labs company, so regulators think of it more as a security stock than a commodity asset. There are indeed ETFs of stocks, right? I mean, that's kind of the main thing, right? There is index ETFs and ETFs of sectors and stuff like that. So it's not like there are no ETFs in stocks or securities. Indeed, there are, right? But there is another very interesting argument, and very interesting development in that lawsuit that I just mentioned, which I'm going to talk about right after this here. But first of all, let's see what they have to say here on Reddit. Let's get back. So, yeah. Why would you want to have counterparty risk when you can own and control the asset itself? Absolutely, that's what I just told you. If you can get the asset itself, but some people cannot. They need to go through a SEC approved product. And then someone says contract-based crypto is considered a security. I will give you some, really, really exciting and really fresh input on that one here. So basically, and then some say it's not decentralized enough. It's part of Solana Labs, and there's so many opinions here, but in the end, the essence of it and the gist of it is basically people think it's not going to happen because Solana is considered a security. There is that lawsuit, and there was a hearing yesterday, and I've read um, multiple summaries of the hearing. Right, it was a over 4 hour hearing with the judge hearing arguments from Coinbase, one party, and the SEC. And the SEC sued Coinbase, right, for whatever reason, right? And Gary Gensler really likes this thing, and I don't know about Gary Gensler, right? So I want to call him a nickname actually, and I want to ask you guys, what nickname should we give Gary Gensler? What would be a great nickname for that guy? Please let me know in the comments, and I'll promise you the best nickname that's coming up in the comments. I'll give you a free T-shirt, a free Xandeum T-shirt from our merch store, right? So, and all the others can just go to Xandeum.com here and check out our merch store and buy that stuff there. But the best nickname for Gary Gensler, I will give you a free T-shirt there. And yeah, I mean, again, please write me that in the comment. I'd love to find a great nickname for Gary. And also don't forget to hit that like button. So that given that the news is from that hearing that happened yesterday, right? It's all about the Howey test, right? The Howey test is what defines a security, right? And that was a lawsuit in 1946, right? And it was the SEC versus the Howey company back in the day, right? And then it's a four-legged test, right? That says, well, it is it is an investment of money with the expectation of profit, and it's through the work of others, and all these criteria, right? And likely the SEC might have had a good case, right? Because probably those four criteria might be fulfilled for many of these tokens that they talked about, right? But if you really read the lawsuit from back then, it was about an investment contract, right? So there was an investment contract offered, right? It has rights of rescission and all these types of things, right? And then the judge asked in the hearing, right? The SEC said, "Well, yeah, we're SEC. We think that's a security." And then the judge said, "Oh, you think it's a security? Yeah, yeah, we think that. So then there must be a right of rescission, right?" And yeah, that must be a right of rescission. But then, that was a dead end, right? That was a nice move of the judge, because in the end, there is no right of rescission when you buy Solana tokens or when you buy whatever, Axie Infinity, right? And there is no investment contract. And that whole case back in 1946 was about investment contracts, right? It's not like you can just take the 4 points of the Howey test and then say anything that fulfills that is a security. And the judge was like, if that was the case, then, if I buy trading cards, if I buy Beanie Babies, or if I buy anything like, a football club's shirts or stuff like that, right? Or even art, then all this must be securities, right? But they are not investment contracts, right? And then also it's about primary transactions and secondary, right? So the primaries are only the one where the issuer sells these things to you, and the secondaries are like someone already owns it and then he sells it to someone else on an exchange, right? And those aren't covered under that anyway. So that's another good point for Coinbase, where they say they do only secondary. They never represent the issuer there, right? It's just from A to B, from one owner to the other, where they sell these tokens. So after listening to that hearing, right, I feel like 90% probability Coinbase will win this case, right? Which will be a big, big, big win, not only for Coinbase, but for crypto and the US crypto world in general, right? And I think, I could be completely wrong, of course, but I think 90% chance Coinbase will win, which means Ethereum and Solana will not be considered securities. It would be awesome to have that kind of safety of law here, right? And that clarification, that was what we've all been waiting for, right? So if that really happens and the judge dismisses the case, and it looks like that's going to happen, that will be huge, right? So let's see what's coming out of that. I don't have the exact timeline. The judge will decide. But right now, it's more like completely dismissing the case, right? She could make that decision right now, and it looks like she might do that. And then that couldn't take that long, I feel, right? It's probably a decision within the next couple of months or so. So let's see how that happens. And, after reading the comments on Coinbase, the only argument why a Solana ETF would not happen would be because Solana is considered a security. Well, first of all, most likely it's not going to be considered a security. And second of all, even if it would be a security, or even if it was a security, it was considered a security, then, it doesn't mean there's no ETF, because there's so many ETFs of securities out there, right? And Solana is marching up that list of the um, tokens with the most market cap, and it's going to be an important, very important thing, together with Ethereum and all the others. And I personally think, like, if we look like maybe 2 years into the future, 1 to 2 years, likely there's going to be a Solana ETF. So mark my words, but of course, I don't know, and I might be completely wrong. But I hope you enjoyed this little video. Nothing of it was financial advice, as always. And remember to give me that nickname for Gary Gensler in the comments. And thanks for watching, guys, and see you later. Bye.